Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 859th night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Kazi said to Zayn Al-Mawasif, O admirable of attributes and singular among beauties, be not thy heart other than hearty for our doing thy desire, thy winning to thy will. So she called down blessings on them, and farewelled them, and went her way, the while her husband abode with his friends at the marriage banquet, and knew naught of her doings. Then she proceeded to beseech the notaries and scribes and the notables and the chiefs of police to succor her against that unbelieving miscreant, and deliver her from the torment she suffered from him. Then she wept with sore weeping, and improvised these couplets. Rain showers of torrent tears on eyne and sea, and they will quench the fires that flame in me. After my robes of gold embroidered silk, I wake to wear the frieze of monkery, and all my raiment reeks of sulphur fumes, when erst my shift shed musky fragrancy. And hast thou, O Masrur, my case descried? Ne'er hast thou borne my shame and ignominy, and eke hubbub in iron chains is laid, by miscreant who unknowns God's unity. The cry of Jewry, I renounce and home the Muslim faith, accepting faithfully. Eastwards I prostrate self in fair skies, holding the only true belief that Masrur, forget not love between us twain, and keep our vows and troth with goodly gree. I've changed my faith for sake of thee, and I, for stress of love, will cleave to secrecy. So haste to us in heart thou bear, as noble spirit, not as laggard fair. After this, she wrote a letter to Masrur, describing to him all the Jew had done with her from first to last, and enclosed the verses aforesaid. Then she folded the scroll and gave it to her maid Hubub, saying, Keep this in thy pocket till we send it to Masrur. Upon these doings, lo and behold, in came the Jew, and seeing them joyous, said to them, How cometh that I find you merry? Say me, hath the letter reached you from your bosom friend, Masrur? Replying Zayn Al-Mawasif, We have no helper against thee, save Allah, extolled and exalted be He. He will deliver us from thy tyranny, and except thou restore us to our birthplace and homestead, we will complain to thee tomorrow to the governor of this town, and to the Kazi. Quoth he, Who struck off the shackles from your legs? But needs I must make for you of your fetters 10 pounds in weight, and go round about the city with you. Replied Hubub, All that thou proposest against us, thou shalt fall into thyself, so it please Allah the Most High, by token that thou hast exiled us from our homes, and tomorrow we will stand, we and thou, before the governor of the city. They nighted on this wise, and next morning the Jew rose up in haste, and went out to order new shackles, whereupon Zayn Al-Mawasif arose, and repaired with her women to the courthouse, where she found the 4 Kazis, and saluted them. They all returned her salutation, and the Kazi of Kazis said to those about them, Verily, this damsel is lovely as the Venus star, and all who see her fall in love with her, and bow before her beauty and loveliness. Then he dispatched 4 sergeants, who were sheriffs, saying, Bring ye the criminal after abjectest fashion. So when the Jew returned with the shackles, and found none in the house, he was confounded. But as he abode in perplexity, suddenly up came the officers, and laying hold of him, beat him with sore beating, and dragged him face downwards before the Kazi. When the judge saw him, he cried out in his face, and said to him, Woe to thee, O foe of God! Is it come to such a pass with thee, that thou doest the deed thou hast done, and bringest these women far from their country, and stealest their money, and wouldest make them Jews? How durst thou seek to make miscreants of Moslems? Answered the Jew, O my lord, this woman is my wife. Now when the Kazi heard this, they all cried out, saying, Throw this hound on the ground, and come down on his face with your sandals, and beat him with sore blows, for his offense is unpardonable. So they pulled off his silken gear, and clad him in his wife's raiment of haircloth, after which they threw him down, and plucked out his beard, and belaboured him about the face with sandals. Then they set him on an ass, face to crupper, arsi, versi, and making him take its tail in his hand, paraded him around the city, ringing the bell before him in every street, after which they brought him back to the judges in sorest plight. And the 4 Kazis, with one voice, condemned him to have his feet and hands cut off, and lastly to be crucified. When the accursed heard this sentence, his sense forsook him, and he was confounded, and said, O my lords, the Kazis, what would ye of me? They replied, Say thou, this damsel is not your wife, and the monies are her monies, and I have transgressed against her, and brought her far from her country. So he confessed this thus, and the Kazis recorded his confession in legal form, and taking the money from him, gave it to Zayn Al-Mawasif, together with the document. Then she went away, and all who saw her were confounded at her beauty and loveliness, while each of the Kazis looked for her committing herself to him. But when she came to her lodging, she made ready all matters she needed, and waited till night. Then she took what was light of load and weighty of worth, and setting out with her maids under cover of the murks, 3 days and 3 nights fared on without stopping. Thus it was with her. But as regards the Kazis, they ordered the Jew to prison. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 860th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Kazis ordered the Jew to prison, and on the morrow they looked for Zayn Al-Mawasif coming to them, and they and their assessors, but she presented themselves not to any of them. Then said the chief Kazi, I wish today to make an excursion without the town on business there. So he mounted his she-mule, and taking his page with him, went winding about the streets of the town, searching its length and width for Zayn Al-Mawasif, but never finding her. On this errand he came upon the other 3 Kazis going about on the same, each deeming himself the only one to whom she had given trust. He asked them whither they were riding, and what they were going up and down the streets for. When they told him their business, whereby he saw that their plight was as his plight, and their quest as his quest. So they all 4 rode throughout the city seeking her, but could hit on no trace of her, and returned to their houses, sick for love, and lay down on the bed of languor. Presently the chief Kazi bethought himself of the blacksmith. So he sent for him, and said to him, O blacksmith, knowest thou aught of the damsel, whom thou didst direct to me? By Allah, and thou discover her not to me, I will whack thee with whips. Now when the smith heard this, he recited these couplets. She who my all of love by love of hath won, owns every beauty, and for others leaves she none. She gazes, a gazelle. She breathes, fresh ambergris. She waves, a lake. She sways, a bough. She shines, a sun. Then said the blacksmith, By Allah, O my lord, since she fared forth from thy worshipful presence, I have not set eyes on her. No, not once. Indeed, she took possession of my heart and wits, and all my talk and thoughts are of her. I went to her lodging, but found her not, nor found I any who could give me news of her. And it is as if she dived into the depths of the sea, or had ascended into the sky. Now when the Kazi heard this, he groaned a groan, that his soul was like to depart thereof, and he said, By Allah, well it were had we never seen her. Then the smith went away, whilst the Kazi fell down on his bed, and became sick of languor for her sake. And on likewise fared it with the other 3 Kazis and assessors. The mediciners paid them frequent calls, but found in them no ailment requiring a leech. So the city notables went into the chief Kazi, and saluting him, questioned him of his case, whereupon he sighed and showed them that was in his heart, reciting these couplets. Stint ye this blame. Enough, I suffer from love's malady, nor chide the Kazi frail, who fain must deal to folk decree. Who doth accuse my love, let him for me find some excuse, nor blame, for lovers blameless are in lovery slavery. I was a Kazi whom my fate deigned aid with choicest aid, by writ and reed, and raised me to the wealth and high degree, till I was shot by sharpest shaft that knows no leech, no cure, by damsel's glance, who came to spill my blood and murder me. To me came she, a Moslema, and of her wrongs she plained, with lips that oped on orient pearls ranged fair and orderly. I looked beneath her veil and saw a wending moon at full, rising below the wings of night and gloomed with blackest blee, a brightest favour, and a mouth bedight with wondrous smiles. Beauty had brought the loveliest garb and robed her capapai. By Allah, ne'er beheld my eyes a face so fairly fair, amid mankind whoever are Arab or Ajami. My fair, what promise didst thou make, what time to me thou settest, when as I promise I perform, O Kazi, faithfully? Such is my steed, and such my case, calamitous and dire, and ask me not, ye men of spunk, what dreadful teen I dree. When he ended his verse, he wept with sore weeping, and sobbed one sob, and his spirit departed his body, which seeing they washed him, and shrouded him, and prayed over him, and buried him, graving on his tomb these couplets. Perfect were lovers' qualities in him, was born a morn, slain by his love and his beloved to this untimely grave. Kazi was he amid the folk, and 'twas his delight to foster all the folk, and keep a sheath that justice clave. Love caused his doom, and ne'er we saw among mankind before the lord and master lauding low before his thralled slave. Then they committed him to the mercy of Allah and went away to the second Kazi in company with the physician, but found in him not an injury, nor ailment needing a leech. Accordingly, they questioned him of his case, and what preoccupied him, so he told them what ailed him, whereupon they blamed him and chid him for his predicament, and he answered them with these couplets. Blighted by her yet am I not to blame, struck by the dart at me her fair hand threw. Unto me came a woman called Hubbub, chiding the world from year to year anew, and brought a damsel showing face that shamed, full moon that sails through night tide's blackest hue. She showed her beauties, and she plained her plain, which tears and torrents from her eyelids drew. I to her words gave ear and gazed on her, when as with smiling lips she made me rue. Then with my heart she fared where'er she fared, and left me pledged to sorrow's soul subdue. Such is my tale, so pity ye my case, and this is my page with Kazi's gear in due. Then he sobbed one sob, and his soul fled his flesh, whereupon they gat ready his funeral, and buried him, commending him to the mercy of Allah. After which they repaired to the third Kazi, and the fourth, and there befell them the like of what befell their brethren. Furthermore, they found the assessors also sick for the love of her, and indeed all who saw her died of her love, or they all died not, lived on tortured with the low of passion. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 861st night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the city folk found all the Kazis and the assessors sick for the love of her, and all who saw her died lovesick, and they died, not lived or tortured with the low of passion for stress of pining for no purpose. Allah have mercy on them one and all. Meanwhile, Zayn Al-Mawasif and her women drave on with all diligence till they were far distant from the city, and it is so fortunate that they came to a convent by the way wherein dwelt a prior called Danis, and 40 monks. When the prior saw her beauty, he went out to her and invited her to alight, saying, Rest with us 10 days, and after wend your ways. So she and her damsels alighted and entered the convent. And when Danis saw her beauty and her loveliness, she debauched his belief, and he was seduced by her, wherefore he fell to sending the monks, one after another, with love messages, But each who saw her fell in love with her, and sought her favours for himself, whilst they excused and denied herself to them. But Danis ceased not his importunities till he had dispatched all the 40, each one of whom fell lovesick at first sight, and plied her with banishments, never even naming Danis, whilst she refused and buffed them with harsh replies. At last, when Danis's patience was at an end, and his passion was sore upon him, he said in himself, Verily, the soothsayer Naught scratcheth my skin but my own nail, and naught like my own feet, for mine errand may avail. So up he rose, and made ready rich meats. And it was the 9th day of her sojourn in the convent, where she had proposed only to rest. Then he carried them into her, and set them before her, saying, Bismillah, favour us by tasting the best of the food at our command. So she put forth her hand, saying, For the name of Allah, the compassionating and the compassionate. And ate she and her handmaidens. When she had made an end of eating, he said to her, O my lady, I wish to recite to thee some verses. Quoth she, Say on. And he recited these couplets. Thou hast won my heart, by cheek and eye of thee. I'll praise for love and prose and poetry. Wilt fly a lover, love sick, love distraught, who strives and dreams some cure of love to see? Leave me not fallen, passion fooled, since I for pine have left uncared the monastery. O fairest, 'tis thy right to shed my blood, so rule my case and hear the cry of me. When Zayn Al-Mawasif heard his verses, she answered him with these 2 couplets. O who suest union, ne'er hope such delight, nor solicit my favours, O hapless wight. Cease to hanker for what thou canst never have. Next door are the greedy to sore despite. Hearing this, he returned to his place, pondering in himself, and knowing not how he should do in her affair, and passed the night in the sorriest of plights. But as soon as the darkness was darkest, Zayn Al-Mawasif arose and said to her handmaids, Come, let us away, for we cannot avail against 40 men, monks, each of whom requireth me for himself. Quoth they, Right willingly. So they mounted their beasts, and issued forth the convent gate. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 862nd night, she resumed, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Zayn Al-Mawasif and her handmaids issued forth the convent gate, and under favour of the night rode on till they overtook a caravan, with which they mingled, and found it came from the city of Adon, where the lady had dwelt. Presently Zayn Al-Mawasif heard the people of the caravan discoursing of her own case, and telling how the Kazi and assessors were dead for love of her, and how the townsfolk had appointed in their stead others who released her husband from prison. Whereupon she turned to her maids and asked them, Heard ye that? And Hubab answered, If the monks were ravished with love of thee, whose belief is it that shunning women is worship, how should it be with the Kazis, who hold that there is no monkery in all Islam? But let us make our way to our own country, whilst our affair is yet hidden. So they drave on with all diligence. Such was their case. But as regards the monk, on the morrow, as soon as it was day, they repaired to Zayn Al-Mawasif's lodging to salute her, but found the place empty, and their hearts sickened within them. So the first monk rent his raiment, and improvised these couplets. Ho, ye my friends, draw near, I forthright. From you depart, since parting is my lot. My vitals suffer pangs of fiery love, flames of desire and heartburn high and hot. Forsake a fairest girl who sought our land, whose charms the horizon full moons evens not. She fared, and left me victim by her love, and slain by shaft those lids death-dealing shot. Then another monk recited the following couplets. O ye, who with my vitals fled, have ruth on this unhappy, haste ye homeward bound. They fared, and fared fair peace of farthest track, yet lingers in my ear that sweetest sound, far and farther fain. Would heaven I saw their shade and vision float my couch around, and when they went, with them they bore my heart, and in my tear floods all of me left drowned. A third monk, with these extempore lines. Throne, you on highmost, hearts, ears, and sight, your wands my heart, mine all your dwelling site. Sweeter than honey is your name a lip, running as neath my ribs runs vital sprite. For love hath made me as a toothpick lean, and drowned in tears of sorrow and despite. Let me but see you in my sleep, belike shall clear my cheeks of tears that lovely sight. The fourth then recited the following couplets. Dumb is my tongue, and scant my speech for thee, and love, the direst torture, gars me dree. O thou full moon, whose place is highest heaven, for thee but double pine and pain in me. And the fifth, these couplets. I love a moon of comely shape form, whose slender waist hath title to complain, whose lip dews rival most and long kept wine, whose heavy haunches haunt the minds of men. My heart each morning burns with pain and pine, and the night talkers note I'm passion slain, while down my cheeks, carnelian like the tears of rosy red shower down like railing rain. And a sixth, the following. O thou who shunnest him thy love misled, O branch of Ban, O star of highmost, to thee of pine and passion I complain, O thou who fired me with cheeks rosy red. Did e'er such lover lose his soul for thee, or from prostration and from prayers fled? And a seventh, these. He seized my heart and freed my tears to flow, bought strength to love and bade my patience go. His charms are sweet as bitter his disdain, and shafts of love his suitors overthrow. Still blame, O blamer, and for past repent, none will believe thee who dost love unknow. And on this wise all the rest of the monks shed tears and repeated verses. As for Danis the prior, weeping and wailing redoubled on him, for that he found no way to her enjoyment, and he chanted the following couplets. My patience failed me when my lover went, and fled that day mine aim and best intent. O guide, O litters, lead their camels fair, haply some day they'll dine with me to tent. On parting day, sleep parted from my lids, and grew my grieving, and my joy was shent. I moaned to Allah what her love I dreed, my wasted body, and my forces spent. Then, despairing of her, they took counsel together, and with one mind agreed to fashion her image, and set it up with them, and applied themselves to this till they came to them the destroyer of delights, and the severer of societies. Meanwhile, Zayn Al-Mawasif fared on without ceasing to find her lover Masrur, till she reached her own house. She opened the doors and entered, and then she sent to her sister Nasim, who rejoiced with exceeding joy at the news of her return, and brought her the furniture and precious stuffs left in her charge. So she furnished the house, and dressed it, hung the curtains over the doors, and burning aloes woods and musks and ambergris and other essences, till the whole place reeked with the most delightful perfumes. After which the adornment of qualities donned her finest dress and decorations, and sat talking with her maids, whom she had left behind when journeying, and related to them all that had befallen her first to last. Then she returned to Hubub, and giving her dirhams, bade her fetch them something to eat. So she brought meat and drink, and when they had made an end of eating and drinking, Zayn al-Mawasif bade Hubub go and see where Masrur was, and how it fared with him. Now he knew not of her return, but abode with concern, overcast, and sorrow might not be overpast. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of these tales for today, till it be morrow.